Once upon a time, there lived a man whose single decision ended the life of the woman who was carrying his child. His name was Daniel. Daniel was not a wicked man, but he was known for one thing, and that was standing firm. If Daniel believed something was right, no one could change his mind. He loved his wife Miriam deeply, and everyone could see it. When she laughed, he laughed louder. But there was one belief Daniel never bent on, and that was no blood transfusion. To him, blood was sacred. No other person's blood should enter the body God created. He believed this with all his heart. And one night, that belief was tested. Miriam was just 8 months pregnant when the pain started. At first, it hit her like a sharp pain. Then her breathing began to slow. So she quickly tapped Daniel. Daniel woke up immediately and without hesitation helped her into the car and rushed her to the hospital. By the time they arrived at the hospital, Miriam's face had turned pale. The doctor quickly examined her and then turned to Daniel with a serious look. "Your wife is losing a lot of blood," he said. "She needs a blood transfusion. If we don't act now, both her and the baby may not survive." Before the doctor could even finish speaking, Daniel said no. The doctor looked at Daniel in disbelief. "Sir, this is necessary and urgent." Miriam heard everything, though she was awake but very weak. "Daniel," she whispered. Daniel quickly rushed to her and held her hand. "They want to give me blood," she said softly. "Please, allow them." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You know what you believe," he said quietly. Tears rolled down her face. "Daniel, I don't want to die. I want to see our baby." She held his hand weakly. "Please, don't let me die." For a moment, Daniel said nothing. Then he shook his head. "You won't die. God will protect you." The doctor spoke again. "Sir, her blood level is dropping fast. If we delay, she may go into shock." The room went silent. Just then, the door burst open. Miriam's mother and her brothers rushed into the room. "What is happening?" her mother cried. "They want to give her blood," Daniel said, "and I refused." Her mother stared at him in shock. "You refused?" On the bed, Miriam slowly lifted her weak hand. "Mom," she whispered. Her mother rushed to her and held her hand. "Mom, please, don't let me die," Miriam said weakly. "Please let them give me the blood." Her mother held her tightly, tears streaming down her face. Then she turned to Daniel, her voice shaking with anger and pain. "She trusted you to protect her, not to watch her die." One of her brothers stepped forward. "Doctor, take my blood," he said urgently. "Test it. If it matches, give it to her. I will donate it right now." The doctor nodded quickly. "We can do that, but we still need consent to proceed." But Daniel stepped forward and blocked the bed. "No one will donate anything." The brother stared at him in disbelief. "I am giving my own blood to my sister." "She is my wife," Daniel said, "and I have the final say." The doctor glanced at the monitor again, his voice tense. "Her blood level is dropping fast. If we don't transfuse now, she may not survive." The brother turned to the doctor again. "Doctor, please go ahead and take my blood." Daniel's voice rose sharply. "No blood transfusion, period." The room was silent. "If anyone tries it," Daniel said coldly, "I will sue this hospital and everyone involved." Miriam's breathing grew weaker. "Refer us somewhere else," he said. Minutes later, she was placed in an ambulance. Her mother cried. Her brother shouted at Daniel, "You are killing her!" But Daniel said quietly, "I am saving her soul." Daniel's eyes were filled with tears, but he did not change his decision. Miriam looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Daniel, I'm weak. Please don't let me die." He held her hand firmly. "Don't you trust me anymore?" he asked. But Miriam was too weak to answer. The doctor referred them to another hospital because Miriam's condition had become very critical. On the way to the second hospital, her breathing became shallow and she struggled to breathe. Suddenly, her fingers tightened around Daniel's hand. Then slowly, they loosened. Daniel felt the coldness in her hand and shouted her name. "Miriam!" There was no answer. "Miriam, wake up!" But her body had already gone still. Daniel began to cry. Yet, deep inside, he kept trying to convince himself that he had done the right thing. When people heard how Miriam died, they were very angry. They blamed Daniel. Many called him a wicked husband whose foolish belief had cost his wife her life. So Miriam's family took the matter to court. They said Miriam begged for her life, but Daniel refused the treatment that could have saved her. In the courtroom, Miriam's mother stood up. "Your Honor," she said with tears in her eyes, "my daughter begged to live. She asked for help, but the man who promised to protect her refused." The courtroom went silent. The judge looked at Daniel before giving the ruling. "Mr. Daniel," he said slowly, "faith is a personal right, but it must never cost another person their life. Your refusal of life-saving treatment contributed to your wife's death." Daniel was charged with negligence and ordered to pay compensation to Miriam's family. But the judgment did not bring Miriam back. On the day of the burial, the atmosphere was painfully cold. None of Miriam's family members came. Even Daniel's friends and neighbors stayed away. Only members of his church stood beside him. As he was lowered into the ground, the silence felt heavier than the soil falling on it. Daniel stood there, staring at the grave. Inside his mind, the words kept repeating, "I did the right thing." But life at home was no longer the same. The house became quiet. Miriam's clothes were still in the wardrobe. His 6 years old son, Caleb, changed too. The once cheerful boy who ran through the house shouting "Mommy" now spoke very little. Most evenings he sat quietly on the floor with his toy car, pushing it slowly across the tiles without saying a word. One afternoon, while in class, Caleb suddenly fainted. His class teacher rushed him immediately and he was taken to the hospital. Daniel was called and rushed to the hospital as well. Caleb was revived but was very weak. After running several tests, the doctor discovered that his blood level was extremely low. He turned to Daniel. "Your son's blood level is extremely low," he said. "He needs an urgent blood transfusion." The words struck Daniel like a blow. "No," he said quickly. "There must be another way." The doctor frowned. "Sir, this is not optional. Without blood, we cannot begin any treatment." Daniel pulled out his phone and began searching for foods that increase blood quickly, the natural ways to boost blood, and how to increase blood level without transfusion. The doctor watched him for a moment. "Sir," he said gently, "this is severe anemia. Food will not help him now. We are running out of time." Daniel shook his head. "No blood. Give him medicine." "We cannot do anything without the transfusion," the doctor replied firmly. Daniel's hand began to shake. Caleb lay quietly on the hospital bed, looking very weak. "Daddy," Caleb whispered. Daniel held his hand. "Daddy, I don't feel well." Daniel forced a smile, though his lips were shaking. "You'll be fine. Daddy is here, okay?" Caleb looked at him weakly. "Daddy, am I going to die?" The question pierced through Daniel like a knife. "No," he said quickly, "you are not going to die." The boy squeezed his father's hand gently. "Daddy, please don't let me die." Daniel could not speak. Tears rolled slowly down his face. The doctor stood nearby, watching quietly. "Sir," he said softly, "if you want your son to live, we must do the transfusion now." Daniel looked at his son again. Caleb's small chest rose and fell slowly. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt completely helpless. That night, Daniel took Caleb home. He lay on the bed, still holding his father's hand. "Daddy," he whispered again, "please don't let me die." Daniel turned his face away so that his son would not see him cry. Sleep refused to come. Instead, memories filled his mind. He remembered being 7 years old, standing beside a hospital bed and holding his mother's hand. She had needed blood, but his father refused. Daniel remembered his mother's weak voice. "Please, I don't want to die." He also remembered how his first wife left him for the same reason. She once needed blood after surgery, but Daniel refused. Her family stepped in and took her away. She survived after the blood transfusion, but the marriage ended. Daniel called her faithless. Now he sat beside Daniel's bed, staring at his son's small body. But if he allowed the transfusion, everyone would know. His church would know. They would say he had lost faith. Daniel looked at his son again. Caleb's lips were dry. "Daddy." Daniel fell to his knees beside the bed. "I'm sorry," he cried. "I'm sorry, son." Daniel knelt beside the bed with his forehead resting against Caleb's small hand. "I will not lose you," he whispered. Caleb's eyes were barely open. "Dad, don't let me die." Daniel sat there for a long time. His mind was full of fear, doubt, and memories. But one thought kept rising above everything else. He could not sit there and watch his child die. Very early the next morning, while it was still dark and the streets were empty, Daniel carried Caleb out of the house. He was very light in his arms. He placed him gently in the car and drove to the next city, a place where no one knew him. "Stay with me," Daniel whispered. When they reached the hospital, Daniel rushed inside carrying his son. "Help him," he shouted. Doctors and nurses hurried towards him and placed Caleb on a stretcher. "What happened?" the doctor asked quickly. "He's losing blood," Daniel said. "Please, just save him." The doctor examined the boy briefly. "We need to give him blood immediately." Daniel felt his throat tightened. For a moment he said nothing. Then he nodded. "Do it." A needle was placed in Caleb's arm, and a bag of blood was hung beside the bed. Daniel stood there watching the red liquid move slowly through the tube. After a few minutes, Caleb's breathing began to stabilize. The doctor checked him and nodded. "He's responding." Daniel sat on the chair beside the bed, with tears rolling down his face. Hours later, Caleb slowly opened his eyes. "Dad!" Daniel leaned forward. "I'm here." "I feel better," the boy said softly. Daniel laughed quietly, with tears in his eyes. "You scared me." Caleb looked at him. "You didn't let me die." Daniel held his small hand. "No," he whispered, "not again." That night, Daniel sat beside the bed while Caleb slept. The empty blood bag still hung beside the stand, and slowly the truth settled in his heart. Miriam could have lived, his mom could have lived, even his first marriage might have survived. For years, Daniel believed he was being strong, but now he saw the truth. It was not strength, it was fear. Fear of judgment, fear of being called faithless, fear of breaking a rule. Weeks later, Caleb was strong again, and this time when he said, "I did the right thing," he did not need to convince himself, because this time he truly did.